the unspoken goodbye. The first time Harrison Reed saw Sophia Winters, she was laughing. Not the polite, restrained laughter of the corporate world he inhabited, but an uninhibited sound that carried across the gallery opening, drawing his attention like a beacon. Her dark hair was pinned up loosely, tendrils escaping to frame her face as she gestured animatedly to a fellow artist about her photography exhibit. Harrison wasn't supposed to be there that night. A last-minute cancellation had left his evening unexpectedly free, and his assistant had suggested the gallery opening as a distraction from the relentless pressure of running Reed Innovations. At 34, Harrison had built his tech empire through singular focus and relentless drive, qualities that made him exceptional in business but left little room for meaningful connections. "The contrast between light and shadow in your work is extraordinary," he said, approaching her after working up the courage. "It's as if you've captured moments between heartbeats." Sophia turned, surprise flickering across her face before settling into a warm smile. "Thank you. Most people just say they're pretty pictures." "I'm not most people," Harrison replied, extending his hand. "Harrison Reed, Sophia Winters. And yes, I know who you are, Mr. Tech Visionary." Her tone was teasing, without the usual deference or calculation he'd grown accustomed to. "Your facial recognition software just won that international award." What began as a conversation about her photography evolved into drinks at a quiet bar nearby, then dinner the following evening. Harrison found himself captivated not just by her talent, but by her perspective, the way she saw beauty in ordinary moments. The compassion that infused her work documenting struggling communities, her unwavering dedication to her craft despite financial uncertainties. Sophia became the counterbalance to his structured world. Where Harrison saw problems to solve, she saw stories to tell. Where he calculated risks, she embraced possibilities. For 6 whirlwind months, they created a life together. Weekend escapes to the coast, late-night conversations about everything and nothing, plans for a future neither had imagined possible before. "You've changed me," Harrison confessed one evening as they watched the sunset from his penthouse terrace. "I never knew what I was missing until you." Sophia leaned into him, her voice soft against his shoulder. "Promise me something?" "Anything. No matter what happens, talk to me. My parents spent 20 years in silence before divorcing. I can handle difficult truths, but not silence. I promise," he said, meaning it completely in that moment. The promise lasted until the night of the Innovation Gala. Harrison had been working tirelessly on a breakthrough medical imaging technology, something personal after losing his mother to a late-detected illness. The project represented everything he stood for: progress, prevention, purpose. Sophia had been his steadfast support, but that night, everything shattered. His business partner, Vincent Powell, approached him with a glass of whiskey and a concerned expression. "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's something you should know about Sophia." The photographs appeared on his phone. Sophia meeting with Julian Mercer, Harrison's most ruthless competitor, passing what looked like documents. More images followed: lunches, coffee meetings, intimate conversations. "She's been seen with him multiple times over the past month," Vincent said. "My sources tell me Mercer's planning to announce a remarkably similar imaging technology next quarter." Harrison felt the room tilt. The timing aligned with certain project details being leaked, setbacks that had nearly derailed their progress. He'd never connected them to Sophia, never imagined the woman who had opened his heart could be using him. When Sophia arrived late, flushed and apologetic about a meeting that ran long, something cold settled in Harrison's chest. He watched her throughout the evening, searching for signs of the betrayal he now felt certain of. Each smile, each touch, each word seemed suddenly suspicious. "Is everything okay?" Sophia asked as they drove home in silence. "You've barely spoken all night." He pulled into the driveway of his building, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "How long have you been meeting with Julian Mercer?" The color drained from her face. "Harrison, it's not— Don't!" His voice was ice. "I saw the pictures. All those client meetings and gallery consultations. You were selling my work to my competitors. Please let me explain. I trusted you." The words came out raw, wounded. I let you into every part of my life. If you would just listen. But Harrison couldn't hear past the roaring in his ears. Couldn't see beyond the evidence that confirmed his deepest fear, that opening his heart had been a mistake. In the crushing weight of perceived betrayal, he reverted to what he knew. Walls up, emotions shut down, decisive action. We're done. I'll have your things sent to you. Harrison, please. Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she reached for him. He stepped away, his expression hardening. I have a company to protect. As he walked away, he didn't see her hand move protectively to her stomach, didn't hear her whispered words. I'm pregnant. The chance to know the truth disappeared with the closing of his door, leaving Sophia alone with a secret that would change everything. Resilient Heart's 7 years had transformed Sophia Winters in ways she never anticipated. The once carefree photographer now moved through life with purposeful efficiency, her days carefully orchestrated around the twins' schedules. Her artistic eye remained sharp, but it now focused through the lens of motherhood, capturing first steps, lost teeth, and the identical yet distinct smiles of her daughters. Olivia and Emma Reed Winters had come into the world on a stormy April morning. Tiny miracles with their father's piercing blue eyes and her stubborn determination. Sophia had whispered their shared secret into their newborn ears. Your father doesn't know about you, but that doesn't mean you weren't born from love. The first year had been the hardest. Sophia had moved from her trendy downtown apartment to a modest 2-bedroom in Brookhaven, a suburb with good schools and affordable rent. Her photography studio became a nursery, her client meetings scheduled around feeding times and naps. Her parents had offered financial help, but Sophia refused to become dependent. This was her path to walk. You're being stubborn, her mother had said. Harrison Reed is worth billions. His children shouldn't struggle. They're not struggling, Sophia had replied, watching the twins sleeping peacefully in their second-hand cribs. And they're my children, too. She had considered contacting Harrison countless times during her pregnancy. Each time, the memory of his cold dismissal stopped her. The man who had walked away without hearing her explanation didn't deserve to know, at least that's what she told herself on the hardest nights when pregnancy hormones and loneliness threatened to break her. Resolve. The truth about those meetings with Julian. Mercer was both simpler and more complicated than Harrison had assumed. Julian had approached her about photographing a retrospective for his late wife, a patron of the arts who had supported Sophia's early career. The documents weren't stolen tech specs, but portfolio pieces and contract terms. By the time Sophia realized Harrison had jumped to conclusions, he had already shut her out completely. His number changed. His building security instructed to deny her access. Mommy, is this the man in your old pictures? Emma had asked one day, pointing to a business magazine featuring Harrison's latest technological breakthrough. At 5 years old, she was already showing signs of her father's analytical mind, connecting dots that others missed. Sophia had taken a deep breath. Yes, sweetheart. That's an old friend. He looks like Olivia when she's thinking really hard, Emma had observed before skipping away, leaving Sophia staring at the familiar face that had once looked at her with such love. As the twins grew, so did the challenge of keeping their paternity a secret. Beyond the physical resemblance, Harrison's blue eyes, his dimpled smile, the small crease between their brows when concentrating, there were the inherited traits no one else would recognize. Olivia's methodical approach to problems, Emma's fascination with how things worked, their shared ability to focus with intensity beyond their years on subjects that captured their interest. Sophia built a successful career photographing families and corporate events, work that allowed her flexible hours and stability. Her artistic photography took a back seat, showcased occasionally in small galleries rather than the prestigious spaces that had once featured her work. She told herself it was a worthwhile trade for the joy of motherhood, even on days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. You never date, her friend Daniela observed over coffee, while the twins were at school. It's been 7 years, Sophia. Not every man will be like him. It's not about Harrison, Sophia insisted, though they both knew otherwise. It's about time and energy. Between work and the girls, where would I fit someone else? The truth was more complicated. Opening her heart again meant risking not just her own pain, but disruption to the carefully balanced world she'd created for her daughters. It also meant potentially sharing the truth about their father, a conversation she had rehearsed in her mind but never found the courage to have. Life settled into a rhythm of school runs, weekend adventures to museums and parks, and bedtime stories where Sophia carefully answered questions about family with age-appropriate half-truths. She created photo albums documenting every milestone, secretly making duplicates, one set for their home, another stored away for a future she couldn't yet imagine. "Do we have a daddy?" Olivia asked one night as Sophia tucked her in, the question Sophia had been anticipating and dreading. "Everyone has a father," Sophia answered carefully. "Your father lives far away, and he doesn't know about you and Emma. Why didn't you tell him about us?" The innocent question held no accusation, but Sophia felt its weight nonetheless. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and hurt each other. I made a mistake by not telling him, and he made a mistake by not listening when I tried to explain something important. Could we meet him someday? Olivia's voice was small, hopeful. Sophia smoothed her daughter's dark hair, so like her own. Perhaps someday. Life has a way of bringing people together when they're meant to find each other. She had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how soon someday would arrive. Just 3 weeks later, fate would orchestrate the collision of past and present, forcing Sophia to confront the carefully constructed walls between the life she had now and the love she had lost. That night, looking at her sleeping daughters, Sophia allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. "I hope he would have loved you," she whispered. "I hope someday he gets the chance to know how extraordinary you both are." The universe, it seemed, was already aligning to answer that unspoken prayer in ways Sophia could never have anticipated. Chance encounters, Harrison Reed stood at the podium, delivering his carefully prepared speech about the Reed Foundation's commitment to educational access in underserved communities. 7 years as the face of his expanding tech empire had polished his public speaking to perfection, authoritative, engaging, with just enough personal touch to seem authentic without revealing anything truly private. "Technology opens doors," he told the assembled donors and educators, "but only if everyone has the key. That's what tonight's fundraiser is about, ensuring no child's potential is limited by their zip code." The words came easily, though few knew they were rooted in his own history. Before becoming Harrison Reed, tech visionary, he had been a scholarship kid with secondhand clothes and a brilliant mind, fighting for opportunities others took for granted. Success hadn't softened his memory of that struggle, only his visible edges. At 41, Harrison had achieved everything he'd set out to accomplish professionally. Reed Innovations had revolutionized medical diagnostics, expanded into sustainable energy, and maintained its position as an industry leader despite aggressive competition. The business press called him brilliantly ruthless, a description he neither embraced nor rejected. Ruthlessness, after all, had served him well when sentiment had nearly cost him everything. Vincent Powell, still his trusted second-in-command, approached as the formal program concluded. "Excellent speech. The donation pledges are already exceeding projections." Harrison nodded, scanning the room with practiced disinterest. These events were necessary but draining. Too many people wanting pieces of him, too few genuine connections. "Make sure the team follows up personally with the major donors. I need some air." He escaped to a quieter hallway of the museum where the fundraiser was being held, loosening his tie slightly. The Children's Science Discovery Wing was closed to the general public for the evening, but illuminated for attendees to explore between networking. Harrison found himself drawn to the interactive exhibits, appreciating their clever designs. As he rounded a corner, laughter, bright and uninhibited, stopped him in his tracks. 2 young girls in matching blue dresses were engaged in an animated conversation at the pulley system display, working together to lift a weight. You have to pull harder, Liv, the slightly smaller one instructed, her dark ponytail bouncing with enthusiasm. I am pulling harder, Em, the other replied with determined concentration, a familiar crease forming between her brows. The mechanical advantage is only 2-1. Harrison smiled despite himself. Precocious kids discussing mechanical advantage wasn't something you saw every day. Something about them tugged at his memory. Perhaps it was the familiar terminology, or perhaps the girls turned simultaneously, and Harrison felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Two pairs of startlingly familiar blue eyes, his eyes, stared back at him with mild curiosity. Hello? The one called Em said politely. Do you know how to make this go faster? We think there might be a way to reconfigure the pulleys. Harrison moved closer on instinct, mind racing. The resemblance was undeniable. Not just his eyes, but subtle features he recognized from his own childhood photographs. The shape of their faces, the dimple in one girl's left cheek, the way the other tilted her head slightly when considering a problem. You would need to change the arrangement, he heard himself saying, demonstrating automatically. See how this creates a different ratio? That's so cool. The first girl, Emma, he presumed, exclaimed. Olivia, look what happens now. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. It's using the same energy more efficiently. Exactly right, Harrison said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. How old are you two? 6 3/4, they answered in unison, then giggled at their synchronicity. We're twins, Emma added helpfully. 6 3/4. Harrison did the mental calculation with lightning speed. 7 years since Sophia, 7 years since he'd walked away. 7 years that suddenly held a new and terrifying significance. Girls, there you are! The voice froze him in place. I've been looking everywhere! Sophia Winters stopped abruptly, her sentence dying as she registered who stood with her daughters. The color drained from her face, replaced by an expression Harrison had never seen before. Part defensive, part defiant, entirely maternal. Mommy, this man showed us how to make the pulleys work better, Emma said, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. Sophia seemed to gather herself with visible effort. That's wonderful, sweetheart. We need to join Ms. Franklin's group now. They're about to start the planetarium show. But we just got here, Olivia protested. I know, but your class is moving on. You can come back to this exhibit later. Sophia's voice was steady, but Harrison could see the slight tremor in her hands as she reached for the girls. Their eyes met over the children's heads, his filled with dawning comprehension and shock, hers with a complex mixture of fear and resignation. Sophia, he managed, her name feeling foreign and familiar simultaneously on his tongue. Not now, she said quietly, firmly. Not here. As she guided the twins away, Emma turned to wave goodbye. Harrison lifted his hand automatically in response, mind spinning with implications and possibilities he'd never considered. They were halfway down the corridor when he heard Olivia's clear voice. Mommy, why did that man look at us so funny? Harrison stood frozen, watching them disappear into the crowd before pulling out his phone with unsteady fingers. Vincent, I need you to clear my schedule, everything, and find me Sophia Winters' current address. The universe that had kept them apart for 7 years had orchestrated this moment with perfect, devastating timing. As Harrison made his way back to the gala, outwardly composed while internally reeling, one thought repeated with each heartbeat. I have daughters. I have daughters and they don't know me at all. Building bridges. The modest 2-story house in Brookhaven looked nothing like what Harrison would have expected for Sophia. The woman who had once filled his penthouse with vibrant art and laughter now lived behind a white picket fence with wind chimes swaying gently on the porch. Children's bicycles leaned against the garage and cheerful flower beds lined the walkway. It looked like a home in the truest sense, warm, lived in, loved. Harrison sat in his car for 20 minutes before finding the courage to approach the door. 3 days had passed since the museum encounter, 3 days of investigations, revelations, and soul-searching unlike anything he'd experienced before. Vincent's research had confirmed what Harrison already knew in his heart. Olivia and Emma Reed Winters, Born April 18th, nearly 7 years ago. Their birth certificates listed no father. School records showed they were exceptional students, particularly in mathematics and science. They took piano lessons on Tuesdays and swimming classes on Thursdays. Normal, extraordinary children who had been living less than 30 miles from him for years. When Sophia opened the door, her expression was guarded but not surprised. She'd been expecting him. "They're at a birthday party," she said by way of greeting. "We have about 2 hours." The interior of the home matched its exterior. Comfortable furnishings, walls covered with framed photographs, toys organized in colorful bins. Evidence of a thoughtfully constructed childhood surrounded them. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question erupted before Harrison could temper it with the careful speech he'd prepared. Sophia's laugh held no humor. "I tried. The night you accused me of industrial espionage and refused to let me explain about Julian Mercer, I was going to tell you I was pregnant." The revelation hit Harrison like a physical blow. You didn't listen," Sophia finished for him. "You made assumptions, passed judgment, and walked away. Exactly what you promised never to do. And afterward? 7 years, Sophia. 7 years of their lives I can never get back." Her eyes flashed. "Don't you dare put this all on me. I called your office for weeks. Your assistant blocked me. I wrote letters that were returned unopened. I even went to your building, where security escorted me out on your orders." The memory of those instructions came back to him. "I don't want to see her or hear from her again. Handle it permanently." Words spoken in wounded pride that had created a chasm deeper than he could have imagined. "After 3 months of trying, I made a choice," Sophia continued, voice steadier now. "I decided my children deserved better than a father who could throw away everything we had without even a conversation. Who could believe the worst of me so easily?" The accusation stung because it contained truth Harrison had spent years avoiding. He'd reacted from fear. Fear of betrayal, fear of vulnerability, fear that loving Sophia had made him weak. In protecting himself, he'd lost everything that mattered. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "Vincent admitted last year that the evidence against you was manufactured. Julian Mercer confirmed you were consulting on a memorial project for his wife. I should have trusted you." Sophia's expression softened slightly. "That matters, but it doesn't change what happened. I want to know them." The words came out raw, honest, in a way Harrison rarely allowed himself to be. "I've missed 6 years. I don't want to miss any more. It's not that simple. You can't just walk into their lives and claim a place there. They're people, Harrison, not acquisitions. I know that." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she would have recognized from their time together. "I don't expect to become dad overnight, but I want the chance to earn it." Their conversation continued for hours, long after the allotted 2. Boundaries were established, timelines discussed, expectations managed. When the twins returned home, buzzing with birthday party excitement, Harrison had already left with a tentative agreement. He would be introduced as an old friend of their mother's, someone who wanted to get to know them before any larger truths were revealed. The following weeks unfolded in small, careful steps. Harrison arranged his schedule, once dominated by board meetings and international calls, around elementary school events and weekend visits. The business magazines that had once featured his ruthless acquisition strategies might have been shocked to find him cross-legged on Sophia's living room floor, helping build a science project volcano or learning the rules of a complicated game the twins had invented. "You're different with them," Sophia observed one evening as Harrison prepared to leave after dinner. "Softer. They make me remember parts of myself I thought were gone," he admitted. "The person I was before everything became about winning and control." Olivia warmed to him first, drawn to his patient explanations of how things worked, his willingness to answer her endless questions. Emma took longer, studying him with thoughtful eyes that missed nothing. "You look at Mommy the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel," she informed him matter-of-factly one afternoon, causing both adults to blush and avoid each other's gaze. Progress came in unexpected moments, Emma calling him in excitement when she lost her first tooth, Olivia asking if he could attend her science fair, both girls falling asleep against him during a movie night. trusting and vulnerable in a way that brought tears to his eyes. "They'll need to know soon," Sophia said as they sat on her porch swing after putting the girls to bed one night. "They're asking questions I can't keep deflecting." Harrison nodded, watching the stars emerge above the quiet neighborhood street. "I'm ready whenever you are. But Sophia," he turned to look at her directly, "I want you to know that building a relationship with them isn't my only goal here." Her expression became cautious. "Harrison, I'm not asking for anything," he clarified quickly. "I don't have that right. But I need you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life, one I've regretted every day since. Whatever happens between us, that truth remains." Sophia didn't respond immediately, her gaze returning to the night sky. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but certain. "Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. Neither is love." "I know," Harrison said, understanding the implicit possibility in her words. "But some things are worth waiting for, worth earning back one day at a time." As he drove home that night, Harrison reflected on how completely his priorities had shifted. The man who once measured success in acquisitions and market share now counted it in bedtime stories read, in tentative smiles from daughters who were beginning to trust him, and in the occasional unguarded moment when Sophia looked at him as she once had, with possibility instead of regret. Coming home, autumn painted the neighborhood in brilliant gold and crimson as Harrison carried the last box from his car to Sophia's front porch. The move into the guest house behind the main home had been Sophia's suggestion, practical for his increasing presence in the girls' lives, but symbolic in ways neither discussed aloud. "Daddy, can we put your telescope on the upstairs deck?" Olivia asked, the title still new enough to make Harrison's heart skip. 3 months had passed since the conversation, where Sophia had gently explained to wide-eyed twins that their mother's old friend was actually their father. "You were in my tummy when Daddy and I had a misunderstanding," Sophia had explained, simplifying years of pain into terms 7-year-olds could grasp. "By the time I tried to tell him about you, we couldn't find each other. Like in Sleeping Beauty when the prince can't find the princess?" Emma had asked. "Something like that," Harrison had replied, voice thick with emotion. "But I'm very grateful I found you both now." The adjustment hadn't been seamless. There had been tears and questions, moments of anger from the twins, particularly Emma, who demanded to know why he hadn't looked harder, searched longer, wanted them enough to find them sooner. Each question had been a deserved wound Harrison accepted without defense. "The telescope goes wherever you want it," Harrison told Olivia now, watching her face light up with the smile that still startled him with its mirror of his own. "Maybe we can look for Jupiter tonight if the sky clears." Inside the main house, Sophia was preparing Sunday dinner, a tradition that had evolved over the past months. Harrison set down the box and moved to the kitchen, automatically reaching for plates to set the table. "The Martins invited the girls to their lake house next weekend," Sophia mentioned as she checked the roasting chicken. "It would be just us if you still wanted to look at those investment properties downtown." The reference to us, casual, unforced, warmed Harrison more than she could know. Their relationship had evolved in careful stages, co-parents first, then cautious friends, and recently, something more. The first time he'd kissed her again, tentatively, after a school concert where both girls had performed, had felt like coming home after a long, self-imposed exile. "I was thinking," Harrison began, measuring his words, "that maybe we could use that time to talk about something more important than real estate." Sophia turned, recognizing his tone. "Harrison, just hear me out." He took her hands, those artists' hands that had created such beautiful images and raised such remarkable children. "I know we agreed to take things slowly, and I respect that boundary. But the past year has shown me what matters. It's not my company or my reputation or even my pride. It's this, us together. The family we could be." Sophia's expression was complicated, hopeful but hesitant. "We're not the same people we were 7 years ago." "Thank God for that," Harrison said with feeling. "I like who we are now better. You're stronger, I'm humbler, and together we've created something miraculous." He gestured toward the backyard where the twins were directing the Placement of Harrison's furniture with exaggerated authority. I'm not asking for everything at once, he continued. Just the chance to build something permanent, something the girls can count on. Something we can count on. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, her gaze thoughtful. You hurt me deeply, Harrison. For years I thought that pain defined us. And now? Now I see it was just part of our story, not the whole story. She squeezed his hands. I've watched you with the girls. You've never missed a school event, never prioritized work over their needs, never tried to buy their affection instead of earning it. You became the father they deserve. And the man you deserve? Harrison asked softly. Sophia's smile was slow but genuine. You're getting there. The moment was interrupted by the twins bursting through the back door, full of excitement about bedroom decorations and asking if Harrison could help build bookshelves for their growing collection of science books and fantasy novels. Later that evening, after bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, Harrison and Sophia sat on the porch swing that had become their place for important conversations. The night was clear, stars emerging one by one above them. I've been thinking about what you said, Sophia began, her voice quiet in the darkness. About building something permanent. Harrison waited, having learned the value of patience. Before I can say yes to that future, I need you to understand something. She turned to face him, expression earnest in the soft porch light. The hardest part wasn't raising them alone or managing financially, or even the sleepless nights. It was knowing they might grow up believing they weren't wanted badly enough to be found. The admission struck Harrison deeply. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure they never doubt that again. I know you will, Sophia said, reaching for his hand. That's why my answer is yes. Yes to us. To trying again, properly this time. To merging our lives not just for the girls, but for ourselves. Her smile held both vulnerability and strength. Yes to the future you're proposing, whatever shape it takes. Harrison gathered her close, the weight of lost years lifting as possibilities stretched before them. I promise you won't regret it. I'm holding you to that promise, Sophia whispered against his shoulder. We all are. Inside the house, a light flickered on upstairs, Emma or Olivia awake past bedtime. Harrison and Sophia exchanged knowing smiles as they rose to check, moving together with the synchronicity of partners who had found their rhythm again. As they climbed the stairs, Harrison reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 7 years ago, pride and misunderstanding had cost him everything that mattered. Today, humility and perseverance had restored what was lost and offered something even more precious. A second chance. Not just at love, but at family. At becoming the man his daughters could be proud of, and the partner Sophia deserved. The universe that had once torn them apart had orchestrated their reunion with perfect timing, proving that some bonds were too strong to break, some loves too deep to forget, and some families always meant to find their way home to each other.